Good evening, everybody. We'd like to welcome you to the Board of Education meeting for the Enlarged City School District of Middletown for Thursday, March 2nd, 2017. Prior to our regularly scheduled board meeting, we do have a public hearing regarding our stormwater management plan. So at this time, if we could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Mrs. Clark.
Here.
Here.
Mrs. Knapp. Here. Mr. McElroy.
Here.
Mr. Farina.
Here.
Mr. Pierre. Here. Ms. Tobiasen.
Here.
Pastor Williams.
Here.
Annually, we're required as a Board of Education to present to the public our stormwater management plan. In place of Mr. Scott this evening will be Mr. Tuttle for the presentation of the plan.
Hello, good evening, Mr. Estrada, Dr. Eastwood, Mr. Del Moro, members of the board. Tonight we're here as part of the New York State mandate to let the community know that we maintain a stormwater system management plan up on our website. So I'm going to read what we need to read to the community. The Enlarged City School District of Middletown maintains a mandated stormwater management plan for all district facilities. The plan is available for public inspection during regular business hours. In addition to, the district maintains a page on our website, middletowncityschools.org, with information about pollution, prevention, and links to other governmental agencies. The public may address any comments to the Middletown City Schools at 223 Wisner Ave, Middletown, New York 10940, and attention to buildings and grounds. Some of the things that are on our website in the plan that may help conserve the community and with water. There's a top 10 ways to prevent conservation. Some nice articles on there. And some other things about what communities can do to preserve the groundwater. So that's our notice to the public and meeting our mandate.
At this time, as legally required, we offer the opportunity for public comment at this time for the stormwater management plan. Is there anybody here who would like to address the Board of Education in regards to the plan? Nope. Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Tuttle. I need a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
So moved.
Moved by Pastor Williams, seconded by Mrs. Knapp. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 9-0. At this time, I'd like to call to order the regularly scheduled Thursday, March 2nd, 2017 Board of Education meeting for the Enlarged City School District of Middletown. Yes, we have to do the Pledge of Allegiance again, so if you could please rise, and Ms. Tobiasen, can you lead us in the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Democracy at work. If you can remain standing for a moment of silence, please. Mr. Perino.
Thank you, President Estrada. The moment of silence this evening is for Mr. William Spears. And Mr. Spears worked on our custodial staff for a long time, many, many years. According to Pete Wilcox, and I can vouch for it, Mr. Spears was one of the best workers, even as he advanced in age. I happened to work with Bill on a number of projects. It always seemed in the 90s we were moving media centers around and moving schools around and so on. And believe me, very few people, if any, could outwork Bill Spears. He was also tough. He stood about 5'1". And I tell you, the confrontations between Bill and Ludo Grenhauser, another great guy who's passed, they were a thing of beauty to watch. 5 minutes later, they'd be shaking hands and talking. I never held a grudge. I also observed Bill once when I was in ShopRite. Somebody tried to cut the line. He was buying a lottery ticket. Believe me, they did not do that. So Bill belonged to a number of organizations in town, including the Elks, and he was a member of St. Joseph's Church. So he will be missed, and please remember William Spears in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perino. Roll call, Mrs. Clark. Here.
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 I need a motion to approve this evening's agenda.
So move.
Moved by Pastor Williams, seconded by Ms. Tobiasen. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 9-0. And our mission statement. Thank you, Pastor Williams. Sorry about that.
You wouldn't forget when it's me. Mission statement of the enlarged City School District of Middletown. We strive to provide fiscally sound educational opportunities in a safe environment that continuously supports our diverse student population. We will enable all students to graduate, to reach their full potential, to become lifelong learners, and to be competitive, productive members of society.
Thank you, Pastor Williams. I was so excited to get roll call right finally this week that I skipped right over you. I need approval for the regular minutes of February 15, 2017.
So move.
Moved by Mr. Perino, seconded by Mrs. Knapp. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 9-0. Before we move on to recognitions, announcements, and community reports, I just want to make a couple of statements about a couple of incidences that occurred since our last school board meeting. Back on February 14th of this year, the school district, as part of its regular calendar of the lunch, put out a menu that some considered offensive. We put out an apology a couple of days later. There was no intention involved behind the actual meal over at the high school and some of the secondary schools. It actually was, as part of the inquiry, something that the food service workers had wanted to do for Valentine's Day and include something red on the tray. And unfortunately, it is our job to make sure that we are sensitive to our community. In this particular instance, we were not, so we apologize for that. As many of you know, as a president who's Puerto Rican, several African Americans on the Board of Education, it's never our intention nor our administration's intention to be insensitive to our community. So we apologize ahead of the time for that fact. In addition, we had a situation in regards to an employment situation over at the high school. As a response to that, some students decided to do a protest over at the high school. We acknowledge their right to protest. We encourage, as you heard Pastor Williams say from our mission statement, that we want to enable all students to graduate and to become lifelong learners and, more importantly, productive members of society. And part of that means that sometimes you want to protest for what you think is right. During the protest, they were given the opportunity to do so prior to first period, because remember, first and foremost here at Middletown, you're here to get an education. They were allowed to protest when the first period bell rang. All but 2 students went back to class, as they were instructed to do. The remaining 2 were told that there would be repercussions if they continued. One of them went back to class, the other one didn't, and was forced to get suspended. So we want to make sure that we have that out front for you. We do not discuss personnel issues as a Board of Education. Any institution you go to, whether it's a school district or a private company, we don't discuss personnel issues in public. If people choose to do that on their own, that's their God-given right to do that. But from a Board of Education perspective, we don't comment on the specifics of personnel situations. So with that, we'd like to move on with the regularly scheduled part of our board meeting, and we'll move on to recognitions, announcements, and community reports, which we like a lot here because we try to emphasize on a lot of the accomplishments of our students. Before we get to our first one, which are our Scholastic Art Awards, I do want to recognize one individual in the audience today on a motion that we're going to be voting on during the financial memorandum later on, and that's on a grant. And so I'll pass it over to Mr. Perino.
Emily Soper of our media department, Monhegan Media Department, come on forward. Emily?
I was told she was going to be here.
I thought she was in the back, but I guess not.
Okay,
Well,
well, we'll
at-
recognize her anywhere.
At
Go
any
ahead.
rate, Emily was a recipient of one of 110 recipients of a grant to purchase materials of a diverse nature for our public school system, and she'll be concentrating on purchasing materials that reflect the diversity of our community. The grant was part of NEA's, National Education Association's Read Across America program. So Emily is new to us this year, and we congratulate her for that. She's also doing an excellent job. She and Doreen Scott are in charge of the Monhegan Media Center, and she's doing a tremendous job there. She had a number of programs for Black History Month, and she is also planning and having a number of programs and displays for Women's History Month, which is this month, March. So congratulations, even though you're not in the audience, Emily. We appreciate the work you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perino. And we'll move on to our Scholastic Art Award recognition. Mr. Del Moro.
Thank you, members of the Board of Education, Dr. Eastwood, and the Middletown school community. It's with great pleasure once again on this annual event that includes so many of our students in another way in which we exhibit and showcase the talents of the students in our school district. This is a global, a national, a state, and certainly a regional competition. And it's with great pleasure to once again invite Mrs. Ferreira up here with Mrs. Herm, who are the catalysts behind it. I believe Mrs. Osachek as well was involved this year. And any of the art teachers I see would like to join up with the presentations and recognitions. So please share with the community, Mrs. Ferreira, our award recipients and the number of students that participated this year in this great event.
Okay, good evening. So my name is Janet Ferreira, and this portion of the program, we are here to recognize and share the accomplishments and artistic creations of our most talented students in grades 7 through 12. To put their accomplishments into a greater perspective, I just want to spend a few minutes explaining about the Scholastic Art program. The national program was founded in 1923 with many notable past winners. Throughout the country, there are over 100 affiliates. We are one of the 100 affiliates. Last year, nationally, there were 70,000 students who participated in the program with over 320,000 art submissions. The art categories are vast and very detailed. Our particular alliance began in 2008. Dr. Eastwood started the alliance, of course, recognizing the importance of the arts. And we have a very unique alliance. We're the only alliance, actually, out of the 100 that's organized and set up the way that we are, because our alliance includes 4 counties. Excuse me. All of the other alliances is one particular area. So we partner with Sullivan BOCES, Orange BOCES, Dutchess BOCES, Ulster BOCES, as well as the Orange County Arts Council. We've had over 800 students participate this year, with our region alone having 3,500 submissions. And there were 29 schools that participated across the 4 counties. Now, anybody that knows me knows I love data, so I always have to put this slide in here. When we began in 2008-9, we had 362 awards. This year, we had over 3,500 awards for, as I said, over 800 students. Our gold awards back in 2008 were small because of our total number at 38. This year, we had over 200. And as you can see, we have really grown. That's regionally. On the bottom is Middletown, which this year we had our highest participation and awards at almost 500, 496. When we started, we had 60 awards. So this evening, we're here to specifically recognize the gold and silver winners, there were 37 students who earned the 54 gold and silver awards. Though we had a substantial showing in the honorable mention category as well. And anyone who participated that did not earn one of the gold, silver, honorable mention awards received a participation award. Now, the adjudication is done based on the national criteria, which is based on 3 key areas, one of which is blind judging. The jurors that we do hire independently are retired artists in the field of what they're judging. We have 15 judges throughout for the 28 categories. They specifically look at freedom of expression and the criteria. So they look at the originality, technical skill, and really most important, the emergence of a personal voice or vision, something that goes much beyond the classroom assignment. Now, we have already completed our regional ceremony, which we held at SUNY New Paltz on February 3rd. The theater that we had was filled. I had over 850 occupants. It was great. We had our 3 weeks or so of the regional exhibition, also at the SUNY New Paltz Rotunda. That was from February 3rd to the 22nd. We did a few things different this year, one of which was a special field trip that we held on February 10th. That went, this bus that went to SUNY New Paltz for those students that were interested. And they had a specific exhibition and tour of the art studios that are mentioned on the slide: 3D printing, photography, sculpture, and drawing. So I spoke to one of the gentlemen that went on the field trip, and he felt that it was quite interesting. So that was, thank you for letting us do that. So what is next? There's 2 levels of adjudication: the regional, which we have completed, and again, we're here for the gold and silver tonight. So all of our gold winners move automatically onto national adjudication, and that will be held on March 14th. So we'll find out if we have any additional national winners. Whoever does win for national, there's a Carnegie Hall ceremony. It'll be held on June 8th with a national exhibition at the Parsons School of Design and the Pratt Institute. Certainly want to take a minute to thank the teachers who helped participate, the participating students, with the paperwork, the process. It's a process. So it's a time that obviously is well spent and invested, and we appreciate all of the teachers that took the extra step to help our students. So we have both gold winners tonight, and you have silver winner tonight, quite a bunch. You'll see their artwork as they come up. I'm going to have Dana Herm and Kaylee Osachuk, who's the 2 teachers that helped me tremendously during this process, and they're going to take over to help introduce the students who are here tonight.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you, Janet, for that very informative introduction to what we do for the Scholastic Art Awards. Like she said, it is a process, usually starting back until, we have to have the artwork in December, but we're submitting work from the previous year as well. So it is, more than a year's process to get all of this work in. So tonight I would like to introduce some students that we have here this evening. Aina Asan, I think that she is not here, so we'll start with the rest of the list. Freddie Anzarez, please come on up. Here we are. So we have for the students a t-shirt made up with their award-winning artwork on the t-shirt and the award that they also received for the Scholastic Awards. Nate Bedford. And if the students could maybe just stay up here just hold the shirts up and stay up here. We're going to do a group photo op afterwards. So Freddie, come on back. You could just stay right over here. We'll line them up. Troy Collins. Ashley Daring. Catherine Dorfman. Yesenia Galicia. Can you help with that? There you go. John Gutierrez. Michelle Hernandez Castillo. Is he here? Matilda Knapp. Raymond Madden. Crystal Moisette. Bianca Narango. Is Bianca here? No? Jordan Phillips. Tashante Porte. Desiree Torres. Yes, I didn't see Desiree come in. There you go. Emily Urena Reyes. Amber Lee Valdez. Christina Wilson. Is Christina here? Yes. Okay. And Salma Zanade. And Janet, if we can go back to the beginning, I believe Eric Botang is here as well. Eric? Congratulations. And is there anyone else in the audience that I missed that maybe came in late? We're all set? Okay. So congratulations to all of these amazing artists.
I think we want to get them all in the middle.
Yeah,
Yeah, for a picture.
Everybody come on in the middle. We're going to do one group picture. And art t-shirts. That's okay.
Kevin? You good? Okay, okay. Thank you all. Congratulations.
Like the man behind the Iron Curtain.
Thank you.
Before we move on to our next recognition, I do want to, state something really important. And, when the gentleman to my left and your right eventually retires and goes on to other things, part of his legacy in this school district is going to be the arts. Because this program, and it was mentioned at the start, did not exist before Dr. Eastwood brought it to the attention of this area. And so not only our district is getting this recognition, but all of the other school districts in the Hudson Valley too. We didn't have a strings program in this school district before this gentleman to my left arrived. And now we have 700 students who are actively involved in the strings program. So one of his legacies when he leaves, and I hope we all recognize that, is his vision when people were telling him that students of color, students who came from an economically depressed area could not take part in art and strings. He was one of the individuals who said, no, they can. You just have to give them the opportunity. So I want to personally thank Dr. Eastwood for that as well. Yeah, 764 students in the strings program. And we couldn't do it without you guys. Great instructors. We're very proud of all the work that you've done and you continue to do on behalf of all of our students. So thank you as well. Mr. Perino? Yeah.
Interestingly enough, one of the honorees tonight, Ray Madden, is working towards completing his Eagle Scout distinction. And Ray is engaged in a very ambitious project. He wants to do that in rebuilding certain structures at a camp. Now, one thing, Ray has to raise money. Okay, he needs to raise money for the materials and so on. So anybody in this audience or in the Midi TV audience who wants to donate, the best thing to do is contact Alan Turkin at Allstate Insurance Agency in Middletown. So you can just call him up and tell him that you'd like to donate to Ray Madden so he can complete the project. It's a very hard distinction to obtain, believe me. So thank you.
We have several in the district that have done it in the past. So.
Several in the district. We honored one of our students last year, and hopefully we can do the same for Ray Madden when he completes the project. So thank you very much.
Thank you, John. We move on to our next recognition, Mr. Del Moro.
Thank you again. President Estrada, members of the board, Dr. Eastwood, community of Middletown School District. It's with great pleasure to call again up to the microphone Ms. Dana Herm, who is the art teacher and the K-12 art coordinator for our school district, on another venue to showcase the artistic talents of our students. In this case, there's a legislative up in Albany exhibit annually, and we certainly had recipients to that recognition. Ms. Herm? Would you like to let us, everybody, know about them?
And Dr. Eastwood and President Estrada, our sentiments exactly. It was very well put, and we appreciate how much you appreciate the arts. So again, thank you. I would also like to recognize this evening some students for their participation in the New York State Legislative Exhibit, which is sponsored through the New York State Art Teachers Association, which we recently have just received a district membership for. So all of our teachers can take participation in all of these exhibits and opportunities for our students. The legislative exhibit is on view up in Albany at the state capitol for anticipated March 27th through the 29th. At that point in time, it's an opportunity for our state legislators to recognize the arts in schools throughout New York State. Particularly, we want them to recognize the arts in Middletown School District. So this year we have 4 students that have their artwork up there. What's also nice is that parents are able to prearrange a meet and greet with senators and assemblymen so they can talk to our legislators about the importance of arts in our schools and really put a face to a name with the importance of the arts. For participating this year, we have Helen Washington, Jessica Talmadge, Kevin Morano, and Daniela Coriano. I'll call them up in just a minute. We don't have their artwork this evening because it is up in Albany right now, and it will come back to us shortly. So if we have Helen, Jessica, Kevin, and Daniela to please come on up. So these are 2 students that we have that are participating. They're also participating in our portfolio project, which is something new this year. Well, they'll have their artwork adjudicated by other art professionals. So these are 2 of my favorites. What's that? What's that? Oh, sorry, they won't see that. So if we could maybe come up and have a photo op as well. You'll be okay.
And I think all of the artwork will eventually be on the website, right?
On the Nice
Yeah.
website, and we'll get it up on.
And our website, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Del Moro. It's really nice. We have one other recognition before we move along to the community reports from our school board members, and that's just a reminder that we do have a notice of vacancy for 3 Board of Education positions that are up for election in May of this year during the budget vote. My seat, as well as Mr. Pierre's and Mr. McElroy's seats, are up. So please, if you'd like to, interested in running for the Board of Education, you can contact our district clerk. Her number is 845-326-1196 to pick up a petition. You have to get 100 signatures from individuals who are eligible to vote within the Middletown School District. They don't have to be registered to vote at this time, but they just need to be of legal age to be able to vote in order to get that. And once you get the signatures, she can help you out in regards to submitting them in so you can be placed on the ballot in May. In addition, on April 1st, the Orange County School Board will hold a new school board member prospective meeting. If you'd like to sign up for that, you can also contact the district clerk's office and she'll be able to put you in contact with the folks over at Orange County School Board as well. So at this time, we'd like to move on to our first opportunity to address the board. This is our chance to hear from our community. We typically, during this time period, do not converse with the public. It's our chance to just sit back and listen to what you have to say. You'll have 4 minutes. Our timekeeper today, is it Mr. Pierre? And he has a sign that says 1 minute, 30 seconds, and when it says time's up, if you could just wrap up your remarks at that particular moment in time. If you do have a question that administration can answer today, they'll try to do that. If it requires some research, then we'll answer you at the following school board meetings. So at this time, if anybody would like to address the board at this time.
Good evening, Board of Middletown School District. I'm Amin Zinadi, and I had my family with me tonight, and we appreciate everything that you do for this district. And last time I was here, I'm very glad that you addressed the finding of a new teacher, biology teacher, for the Monhegan School. And my family and other families appreciate it very much. Thank you. And have a good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for letting us know last time when you were here, too. Would anybody else like to address the board at this time? Seeing none, I skipped over community reports, so we'll go back to that very quickly. Mr. Pierre? Nothing? Mrs. Knapp?
I just want to send out support for our track team. They have 11 students going tomorrow to states down in Staten Island. So I want to wish them luck, and hopefully they'll be able to come back with some hardware. Yeah. Thank you.
I just want to add to that, too, because that program has grown tremendously. My understanding is they project to have over 200 students in track this spring, which is pretty phenomenal. In the middle school level, both of the buildings have to field teams now because the numbers in each of the buildings have grown tremendously as well. So,
And a lot of that is the result, and Mrs. Knapp can vouch because she's close to that program, our facilities improvement, because before those facilities, the track numbers were way down, right? Correct?
I know you guys know I'm in support of the track team, but I think it's a good group of people, and if you have a good group of people that can keep everybody engaged, make them accountable, they have to keep their grades up, that's part of the deal, but make it exciting and fun, it kind of all comes together, and I think they're able to keep a large amount of students in that area. So I really, I think that's a good thing. If you can have 200 kids going out for track, winter track, that's a big thing. Just my opinion.
Thank you, Mrs. Knapp. Mr. McElroy?
I just wanted to, make mention of the fact that March is Women's History Month, which is an important celebration. The United States has obviously been blessed with a lot of very important women throughout our history, including some names from the past like Lucy Stone or Harriet Tubman, Susan B. Anthony, or more recent people like the UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, who I believe is the first Indian American to be UN Ambassador, or Sonia Sotomayor, the first Latina to be on the United States Supreme Court. Obviously, Mrs. Clinton, who was the first woman nominated by a major party, although not the first woman to run for president. We talked about that in class. Victoria Woodhull, way back in the 1870s. Or other trailblazers like Sally Ride, Susana Martinez, who's the first Latina to ever be elected as a governor in the United States. She, I think, is the governor of New Mexico. But, Women's History Month isn't just about these famous women who have accomplished a lot and have contributed to the country's history, but also, the unsung heroes that we see every day. Our mothers, our wives, our daughters, our sisters, their teachers and police officers and firefighters, their nurses and doctors and engineers. They do so much. And I think next Wednesday is International Women's Day. And, we should obviously do a lot to reflect and remember the contributions that women make every day, not just obviously, for 1 month out of the year. And the only other thing that I wanted to, mention was, some thoughts that have been on my mind over the last few weeks regarding, different student populations. And we're obviously in a very interesting time period in our nation's history, and there's a lot of trepidation and concern. Safety at school is obviously a very important thing, not just, physically being safe in school, but emotionally being safe at school. The president, in his remarks this Tuesday before Congress, talked about how students should be able to go to school in peace, and I couldn't agree more with that. But that means then that for our students who may be undocumented, that they have to be comfortable knowing that when they come to school that they're not going to, go home to a situation that's very traumatizing, or that they're not going to be traumatized while they're here at school because of policies that may be enacted, or for our students and staff who may be transgender. Similarly, they have a right just as much as anyone else to be able to live their lives as they see fit. And it's not just about, being able to use the bathroom or what pronouns we use, all of which are important. It's about human dignity, that everybody is entitled, because they are human, to be treated with dignity and respect. And we don't have to understand it, and we don't have to accept it necessarily, but we have to be able to treat each other with dignity and respect, especially our kids, our students, who deserve to come to school every day and feel loved and not have to worry about how they're going to be treated or mistreated. And it's hard. Most of the, I'm sure, fear of some of the different things, especially relative to transgender students, is mostly with the adults. Most of the kids, they're kind of used to different things, and they kind of get it. And I'm sure that they perhaps have some concerns too. But when I listen to the mission statement every time that I'm here, and we talk about how we support our diverse student body. We have a very diverse student body. We have Christians and Jews and Muslims and Hindus and black, brown, white, and everything in between from all different countries and all different cultural backgrounds. And the least we can do is try to make our school environment one where everyone feels safe. So to those in our community who are trans, I see you. I want to do what I can to support you. As a school board, we were recently reminded from State Ed about, regardless of anything that the President of the United States has done, that New York State is committed to protecting not only trans students, but undocumented students. And I believe very strongly about that. I'm sure people who've watched me talk before know that I feel very strongly about that. And I'm sure at some point we will be discussing and taking up, a policy to carry out the wishes of the state education department. Sometimes they get things right, and on this particular issue, I happen to think that they got it right. I'm fortunate that I get to go through life and I don't have to really worry about a lot of these things. I don't have to worry about which bathroom I'm going to go to. I don't have to worry about getting assaulted because of what I look like. I don't have to worry about a lot of things. And I know and understand that I am privileged in a lot of ways. But then it's incumbent upon us to try to, like in To Kill a Mockingbird, you got to walk a mile in another man's skin and really get to understand where other people are coming from. And again, like I said, you don't have to, it's tough sometimes to wrap your head around these things. You don't have to fully wrap your head around it. All you have to really do is say that person deserves dignity and respect because they're a human just like me. And that's at the end of the day. I think what we're trying to do here with public education, trying to get our kids to not only learn, square roots and, mitosis and all these different things that we do in our classes, even just simply adding or tying shoes. It's about treating, each other with dignity and respect. So I know I've blathered on a lot longer than usual, but it's been on my mind.
Thank you, Mr. McElroy. Mr. Biason.
No, thank you. I want to talk, first of all, about the Living Wax Museum that they had here last week at Presidential Park. The fifth grade students worked on a biography unit, and in talking to the students, I learned that they had to choose a famous person in history, and then they had to use books and the internet and resources and primary documents to learn more about that person. Then they had to develop a biography report. In addition, they needed, I'm going to call them props, to support the report. I think I might have beat Mr. Perino. I don't think he was there, but don't tell anybody, okay?
I don't think I was invited.
Oh, yes, it was in our board. They did a beautiful welcoming folder. There were two sessions. I went to the first session, and there was Amelia Earhart and Abraham Lincoln and Muhammad Ali and Rosa Parks and Queen Elizabeth I. And you would ask the students questions, and the research that they did, they would be able to answer those questions. When I left at about 10:30, I believe there were almost 200.
That's when John showed up.
That's right.
No. Pastor Williams was there because I didn't see President Obama, and President Obama was in the second session. So, and the last thing that I want to talk about is something that's been going on in this district for the last several weeks, and it involves our students, and it involves our teachers and staff. This Saturday, March 4th, the Middletown Odyssey of the Mines teams are going to compete in the regional tournament, which will be held at Orange Ostrobosi's. The students I have to say, have to work very hard. This week, the students were coming in, and not only this week, but this week they've been here coming in at about 8 o'clock in the morning and then going to their 9 o'clock class, and then they have been here every night until 6 o'clock. Last Saturday, those students were here from 9 o'clock in the morning until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I have to give a lot of credit to everyone that's involved. And the schedule, in case everyone wants to know and would like to go to BOCES to witness this, Presidential Park's long-term problem will be at 8:40, William Carter, Team A at 9:20, Monhegan at 11, Maple Hill at 12:40, and William Carter, Team B, at 1:20. And then after that, there are spontaneous questions that each of the teams will come back for, and I believe it's around 4 o'clock that the award ceremony. It's absolutely phenomenal. And each of the teams are made up of 7 students from each of the buildings, and you have to give them credit, sincerely, for the amount of time that they have put into this. So I wish them all good luck, and we certainly have a lot of Midi pride.
What time can we expect?
Thank you, Mrs. Bison. Pastor
Before
Williams.
I was at the second session of the Living Museum put on by the fifth graders here at Presidential Park. No, this John was here. I represented both of us. I represented both of us. Anybody named John has got a good name.
Oh, that John didn't go to an event is history.
I was looking for him. I'll be honest. I was almost floored. But it was a good event. It was a good event, and very proud of the young people, the children. They did a fabulous job. There was such a wide cross section of historical figures that were there, spanning from the entranceway down here by the courtyard, almost all the way down here to this section. They went all the way around and wrapped back into that front section there, and it was really very inspiring to see all of the kids. My son happened to be President Obama, and I told him that if he was going to do it, he had to look presidential. So he had a suit on and his tie, and he had a little "Yes We Can" pen. And so I made sure he was excited about it for the last 2 months. He even wanted the haircut. I told him that's going a little bit too far, so I didn't allow him to get the haircut. But he did real well, and so did so many of the others. So kudos to the program. My understanding is this program was also done some years ago The teachers that promoted this program and did this program came out of even Carter, and it was done a few years ago, even at Carter, and it's been very successful. So kudos, congratulations to our students and to the teachers on that particular program. I also want to take a moment to congratulate all of our winter sports teams, but just like Mrs. Knapp is in big support of the track team, I'm in big support of the basketball team, and so I want to congratulate especially the boys varsity basketball team on a successful season despite some hardships and some hiccups along the way. They did a great job. Happened to see the last game in the sections on Tuesday night against Pine Bush, and although they did not win the game, they played with tremendous heart. And so I want to congratulate the staff and the players on doing such a great job during this season. I already told Coach Kelly I'm coming in next year and doing a big men's clinic, teach the big men how to play down low, because they've got all guards coaches, so they need a big man to help them. So I'm going to go down and teach them a big men clinic, do a big men clinic. And then lastly, real quick, with all of the things that's been transpiring in our district in the last couple of years, in my 4 years here on the board, and becoming involved in this school district as a parent, there's been a lot of different things that have transpired over the last year, and I took a moment to just kind of reflect and have a Selah moment to kind of reflect and look back over the things that's going on, ups and downs, hardships, ins and outs. Sometimes you feel like the nuts, sometimes you don't. All these different things that's happening, and even in the last, with the climate of society now and of our country now, with all of the hardships, with the swatting of last year, and all of those things, and coming down to even these last few issues that we've dealt with this past couple of weeks, I want to give our staff and our administrations a big congratulations on the way that everything has been handled. Sometimes we make some missteps, sometimes we do some things that people don't understand, but you all have handled everything for all of our staff, from the administration down to our principals and our teachers, have handled it with great poise and handled it with great professionalism. And so, personally, as a parent, I want to thank you for what you've done and how you've handled it. We have more challenges that we're going to have to face, I'm sure, but you have set a standard. You have set a standard that is very high. And so I want to let you know that I appreciate what you do. And since in my I don't say my day job, but in my 24-hour, 365, 7-day a week, 365 days a week job, because I never stop being a pastor or a preacher, even when I'm sitting at this table, I want to encourage you from Scripture that says, "Let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season you shall reap if you faint not." So thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Williams. Mrs. Blumenau.
Okay, there it is. I just wanted to, today, while I was at work, one of my coworkers actually came into my office specifically to tell me how impressed she was. She's a Middletown Lions Club member, and our 5th grade ENL students from one of the schools, I didn't get all of the details, I'm sure they know who they are, presented at the Lions Club last night, and they were there for they were there because they were looking to fundraise for a trip that they're planning to go on, and they needed, I think they needed a total of about $1,000 for this trip, and they had gone through and they had created budgets and a plan, and they presented themselves so well, and it was such an impressive presentation that the Lions Club wrote a check right there and then to do for them, so that they got, so they needed 1,000. They had gotten like 400 and something to that point, and Lions wrote the check for 600. So not only I say, good job to our students, of course, for presenting themselves well and just being. I will tell you that this person who shared this information with me is not easily impressed. So our kids must have done a real bang-up job. Were you there? Oh, okay, there you go. So there you go. Anyway, so she did share that. That was very nice. And that's all I have. Thank you.
I miss the days, and a lot of our students probably won't even realize this, but you remember the days when we were young, when field trips were part of the curriculum. You went to the Museum of Natural History, or you went to wherever every year, and unfortunately those days have gone by because of budget constraints and curriculum.
They're going to Liberty Science Center, I think, is the trip that's planned.
It's a shame that our students are forced to fundraise to go.
But I'll tell you,
every year for free.
And you're right, except that the philanthropy aspect of it and the fundraising aspect of it and understanding how to make a presentation, huge experience.
Yeah, and more contact with the community groups.
And the value
is a good thing.
Right, and the value of the trip, just understanding what goes into a trip like that.
Yeah.
So,
thank you.
Pretty good.
Mr. Crescenzo.
All right, I had the the honor and the privilege of going to the Renaissance breakfast last week, and Mr. Perino was there, and he was signing autographs to prove it. But it was really amazing. It was like a well-oiled clock. Dr. Shigaris from House 2 and Mr. Whitaker from House 3 were there. They were coordinating it, and I don't remember how many students. It was over 500, I believe. It was quite a few students. And they started with a breakfast. Mr. Perino was working behind the counter serving breakfast. And as I was walking through, just seeing all these bright faces and how happy they were and what have you. And just as a coincidence, Mr. Perino was talking about Raymond Madden. He was sitting there with another fellow eating his breakfast. So I went over and sat down, and they warmly accepted me there. And I started a conversation with Raymond, and he just took off with it. He's incredibly focused. He's got a career in mind. He's working with computers, and he was talking about his Eagle Scout project, and he's just glowing, talking about all this stuff. And I reminded him that all the original Mercury 7 astronauts were Eagle Scouts. Most of the presidents of the 20th century were Eagle Scouts. So and he's well on his way. After the breakfast, we went into the auditorium, and they had a raffle. They would pick out a student's name, and if they answered the question related to the topic, they won a prize. And I learned at that time that an octopus has 3 hearts. I had no idea, and the person they asked the question to got the right answer. But it was a very, very warm experience. The energy in the room was incredible, and looking at those faces, it's a testament to their parents, the coordination and the hard work of their parents, obviously of the faculty and staff here, but also of the individual students themselves. They knew what they had to do to get there, and they worked very, very hard to do that. So congratulations to them all. And can't wait for the next one. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Crescenzo. Mr. Perino, it's all yours.
Thank you. I was going to speak about the Renaissance breakfast. Now, I will just add that there were 554 students who received honor roll or high honor roll designations. And interestingly enough, the breakfast is always very well prepared for the students. Our new food service director, Mrs. Dunleavy, and our dietetic intern, Miss White, they were both there, and they were on the serving lines. And while we're speaking about the food service staff, Georgie Irizario of the high school staff always does, and the staff, they do a tremendous job over there of preparing the breakfast. Just continuing in that line a moment, I know one of the weeks coming up is breakfast week, and the food service staff, led by Ms. Dunleavy again, they plan to have a free breakfast for everyone. And one on the menu is pancakes. Rose, you can't go to that. So that's it. And continuing on a minute, the Odyssey of the Mind, as Mr. Biason spoke about that. Mr. Biason, that's always a fun program. I advise anyone going to get there early because parking is at a premium there. And you'll see parents and students carrying in huge displays of all kinds of items. You'll see students dressed in costumes coming in. It's sort of like a organized mayhem, but it's organized. And the students get to where they have to go. It requires a lot of hard work. Linda Bratti, who overall coordinates the program, sent us a note on this, and she thanks the parents, the students, the administration, and the staff for doing all the work they do on this.
John, can I just interrupt you a second on that? I believe, I could be wrong there, that they can only spend $100 on their scenery when you say that.
I think you're
and
correct.
they have to come up and make all that, paint it. They cannot have any help from parents at home. It's all done here at school under supervision. It's absolutely amazing at how creative these kids are.
It really is, and that goes for all the schools in the
Yes.
in the Odyssey of the Mind. Vince had talked about some of the club activities, the Lions Club, and Paula mentioned the Lions Club. The service clubs have become really partners in education with scholarships, with programs, supporting various groups. I happened to speak to Glennis Foglia this week. She is coordinator of the No Kid Hungry program in the district, which provides food for certain students for the weekend. She said, that program is not only a Lions Club program, it's a community program because they receive food and monetary donations from a number of churches, including United Presbyterian Church and North Congregational Church. They received a $500 grant from Kohl's and a $1,000 grant from the 10K Classic. And also, two anonymous donors, a couple, donated $500. So this community is most definitely a giving community. And speaking about which, and service clubs, on March 11th, a Saturday, at Middletown High School from 7 to 12, the Middletown Kiwanis Club will hold a great pancake breakfast. Not only pancakes, but sausages, eggs, coffee, juice. Price only $7. And believe me, it's a nice day. Our key club, Kiwanis Educated Youth, will be helping, and the NJLTC will also participate. The Kiwanis Club supports the district in so many ways. They support the Key Club at the high school, the Builders Club at the middle schools, and a number of scholarships. Also in the elementary schools, a dictionary distribution program. So all of the service clubs are committed to helping in one way or the other this community. Just continuing on just for a moment, we talked about Odyssey of the Mind. There's also not only Women's History Month, but March is a Music in Our Schools Month. And I know I see Mr. Dean there, and you're going to have a music program, March 8th, correct, Gordon? And it's starting at 6:30. And they always do an excellent job on these programs. There's other programs also on that Saturday on March 10th, not only the Sojourner Truth Awards, which isn't a music program, but it's at Orange County Community College starting at 6. And there'll be approximately 127 of our students receiving recognition at the Sojourner Truth Award. Coincidentally, on March 10th, there's a concert at the high school. Bob Gavin is putting that on. That's going to be at 7 o'clock. One of our students, and she was in and led the flag salute a few meetings back, Jessica Glickman, who is a graduate of Middletown 213, now being graduated from Rutgers, and an NJROTC scholarship. She'll be commissioned a naval officer, and she's going to be assigned to the Oscar Austin, which is a Arleigh Burke-class destroyers out of Norfolk, Virginia. So congratulations to her, and I think I'll stop there. I have a couple other things, but I've been going on enough here, so thank you very much, President Estrada.
Thank you, Mr. Perino. And I do, it's unfortunate, and I think Mrs. Clark, I had said I was going to be going to the Sojourner Truth Awards because I typically go to them every year. I cannot go now because the concert is that night, and my daughter's in the concert, so I can't do both. I don't think my wife will allow me to. You can only go so far in your role as a Board of Education member. Just two things. I know Pastor Williams mentioned the boys' basketball game. I was fortunate enough to go to the girls' basketball section up in Roosevelt. They lost a heartbreaker, 55-50, but did very well in coming back from a large deficit in the second half. So congratulations. They did a nice job and a good year for our girls' basketball program, which had not been in the sections for a long time and now have been there 2 years in a row. So kudos to them. Also a reminder that this year the performance at the high school is going to be Grease. From what I hear, it is really good. And it's supposed to be March 31st and April 1st, I think, that Friday and Saturday, so over at the high school. So I think if they probably go to the website, it'll tell them about the tickets, how much the tickets are. So if you go to our website, they'll have information about that as well. And it's Greece. Any letters, Mrs. Clark? No letters? We'll move on to personnel action items. Do you have a problem if we do all the action items? Get them out of the way? And then we'll go right to the superintendent? Okay. So does anybody have a problem doing all the personnel action items together?
No.
No? So I need approval for personnel memorandum number 18A administrative, number 18B instructional, number 18C non-instructional, number 18D administrative, number 18E instructional, and number 18F non-instructional.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. McElroy, seconded by Pastor Williams. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 9-0. We have introduction, right? Mr. Delwell?
Yes, we do. Thank you, Mr. Estrada, members of the board. Dr. Eastwood, Middletown School Community. It's always a pleasure to bring to greater knowledge and about our newest member of our Middletown teaching staff, Melanie Schweitzer, has come to us recently in a very difficult certification to find, technology education. We're very fortunate to have her. She is certified in a technology instructionals and will continue her education for the programs we need. And at this time, I'm going to invite the principal, where she'll be working with one of our technology teachers for the remainder of the school year, and will be assigned to Twin Towers next September. Mr. Dean?
Nice tie, Mr. Dean.
Well, thank you, Mr. Estrada. And thank you, Mr. DeMoro, and good evening, Dr. Eastwood, Mr. Estrada, members of the Board of Education. My pleasure this evening to introduce Melanie Schweitzer as the newest member of our staff at Twin Towers in the Middletown Technology Program. It's no secret, if you've been paying attention in this district, of the rich opportunities that we provide for students in technology education, beginning at the middle school with the pre-engineering Project Lead the Way program. They move on up to the high school to the engineering programs, the graphic designs programs, the Cisco programs, and on and on. They can leave our district very well prepared to step into any college program, and in some cases, especially through Cisco, into the professional world, and be very well prepared for success there. So we're excited to have Melanie join us. And I should point out, Dr. Eastwood, that when you were talking about the track team, she leaned in and whispered to me that she is a track and field coach. And then I had a sense, and I was right, Mr. Tuttle, she is a dragon. She is a dragon. Melanie?
Gotta lower this a little, I'm too short for this highest setting. I want to take this opportunity to express my gratitude at the opportunity to teach within the Middletown district. It truly is an honor that I intend to do my very best to uphold. Not only am I looking forward to being the best educator for our students, but I'm also looking forward to integrating myself into the community at Middletown, whether it's through coaching or advisorship. I have a history in professional development as well, so I'm looking forward to finding my niche and pursuing whatever the district needs of me. So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
Thank you.
You have to get through that door first before you move on to the athletic director and stuff. That's right. We're going to bypass the superintendent's report just to get rid of the rest of the action items for the evening, since I don't think there are any issues with them. So I need approval for financial memorandum number 19. Moved by Mrs. Knapp. Seconded by Mr. Macro.
Second.
Any discussion?
I was lost in
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 9-0. I need approval for special services memorandum number 17. Moved by Mrs. Knapp, seconded by Mrs. Blumenauer. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 8-0. I need approval for the instructional calendar for 2017 and 18. Moved by Mrs. Knapp. Seconded by Mr. McElroy. Any discussion? You guys are off your game this evening.
Just one. No.
I'm sorry?
Discussion on the calendar.
Okay, Mr. Perino.
On the website, I saw it, but we don't have it.
Oh, I printed it out if you want to take a look at it.
Yeah, I had seen that. I guess the question I have, I want to, maybe we can address this, is the Friday before Labor Day. At that time, a number of our staff is just getting back from vacation. It's traditionally a long weekend. Was a consideration for having that day as a holiday, or trading it off or something?
There was some conversation about it, but first of all, contractually, they start their school year on September 1.
Okay.
And additionally, as you know, giving away days becomes problematic, especially in the winter time. And this also allows us to get into full swing right after Labor Day weekend with the kids, instead of putting those off.
Okay, well, thank you. That answers the question.
Thank you, Mr. Perino. Mr. McElroy?
I would also just add that it's not unusual. Almost every school district, the teachers will report before Labor Day. Believe me, it's a gripe. But, I'd rather not have to lose something, at some other point in the year. So.
Did you use all your snow days this year at Monroe?
No, we still have one in the bank, I think. Before we have to, we have plenty, I think, actually, before. I don't want to get into that. It's complicated.
Any,
How many do we use?
I don't want to change.
Two.
Two.
And we have 5?
Altogether.
Okay.
So we have 3.
I don't know.
Yes, we discussed. That was discussed in executive session, 11D.
Oh, he was.
Yeah, we discussed it in executive session.
Okay.
That was the one that we discussed in executive session, right? 11D.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So any further discussion about the calendar? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 8-0. I need approval for memorandum of agreement between the school district and the union regarding employee number 1636.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Knapp, seconded by Mr. McElroy. Any discussion? This was a matter discussed earlier this evening in executive session. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 8-0. We'll move on to the superintendent's report and this evening's revenue discussion on the budget.
Yeah, this is the last section of the budget presentations when we have shown now all the programmatic pieces. This is the part that shows our revenue and brings it together, and also gives a sense of what's necessary over the next couple of weeks in order to bring our budget together.
Hi, good evening, Dr. Eastwood, President Estrada, Mr. Del Moro, members of the board. Sorry. I appreciate it. Okay. Good. Thank you. Yeah. As Dr. Eastwood said, this is our last proposed meeting of the revenue side. We've gone through the programs, capital, benefits, and administration, and now we're looking at the revenue. And then if you look at the calendar, we have a public input at the next meeting, and then the big one, the board must adopt the budget on April 20th. Can you hear me? And then obviously the bigger one is the budget vote, May 16th. So some of the things that we always look at is our original assumptions. These are what we've been talking about for all the presentations: 3% inflation, the teachers' retirement system, roughly a 10% increase in benefit or cost there. ERS is 16.5. Health insurance remains at 20% estimated. Our state aid, foundation aid, is at 3% increase to us. And one of the things that we've looking at now is our building aid increase is 32.5% to us. So that's important for us when we talk about our debt service and when we talk about where some of our increases are. And it's also very important to talk about the tax cap. When we get into those formulas, we can look at how having debt actually helps your tax cap. And then our community schools, our set-aside aid was increased this year by 66%. And essentially, they're treating the community schools set-aside aid as foundation aid, but it's geared towards specific programs that we either must create, we cannot supplant, so that's something we have to keep in mind moving forward over the next couple weeks. Real quick, what makes up the revenue for Middletown? 51% of it state aid, local taxes are 47%, and the remaining other revenue is 2% based on all the revenues that we have inside the district. That could result in anything from utility tax from Orange and Rockland, interest on money, things like that. We'll get through that in a moment. So one of the things that we want to look at first is our proposed state aid. This is our basic formula, our lottery aid, BOCES, textbooks, and hardware. And last year we had a smart school, so that's why I'm showing it up there as this year, as there's no monetary value to the smart schools for this year. So our proposed state aid revenue based on all of our state aid, which includes transportation, includes building aid, includes our high tax aid, includes our public and our private excess aid for special ed students, and then that totals $93,149,60 is the proposed revenue from the aid. Typically, this was done in January. This is really just a guideline for this proposal. Hopefully, by the end of March, is the governor's promise an April 1st budget, and then we'll have some real hard figures at that point. Last year, we received some substantial revenue after the budget was completed. Then we talk about our other revenues. Our pilots, which is our payment in lieu of taxes, that's dwindling over the past couple of years. A few years ago, we had a pretty substantial amount with the Galleria. That's come off, and then there are just some smaller pilots in the community now. So we're seeing a decrease in there. Some of the other things we have is our utility tax I talked about. And small city schools are the only schools that can benefit from that utility tax. So we have some other things in here. And some of these, as we keep moving forward and looking at how we adjust the budget and where revenues come from, these are the things we'll be looking at. This totals $4,164,175 in other revenues. So that was the 2%. So kind of a small amount in comparison to our overall budget. So when we look at our tax levy, looking at our local taxes, we have the STAR program, and then that would equal a total levy, a proposed levy of $77,505,905. And that would, utilizing some of our fund balance as we've done in the past, we're down to a budget of $183,952,589. That leaves us short with the tax cap, $3,834,222. So we'll get going through this a little bit more. Again, this is our proposed budget. As you look at the next sheet, this is everything all together. You'll see where it all adds up to $183 million budget, an increase of $10,471,323 from last year. Roughly a 6.04% increase from the previous year. Last year we had the Smart Schools, which was over a $5 million expenditure in revenue for us. That's why we're in pretty decent shape this year with that. This didn't come out very well, but on your papers you can see this is the tax cap, the 8-step tax cap calculation that we go through, looking at all of the information based on previous years. When you get down, you look at how much money we received in pilots, which is the payment in lieu of taxes. How much debt service? Our debt service has increased a little over, just about $3.5 million. But we're receiving a substantial amount of state aid to offset that. So right now, at this, with the tax cap calculation, we can go for the tax cap would be $5,297,690, or 7.337%. So this is taking into fact the growth factor that the state gives us. This is taking into consideration the tax cap that is generated from the State Office of Financial Office up there at State Ed. So this is our maximum. So if you look at, when we get to the next screen, we're looking at, this is our maximum at 50% of the vote plus one, okay? And then if we wanted to go above the tax cap, you need the 60% plus one. And obviously you can always go less than that. You still need the 50% plus one. So these are the calculations we go through. This is something we have to submit to the state, and they validate it, making sure all the districts are in compliance with a tax cap. Obviously, we adjust some of this as we keep moving based on our debt service. That would be the only thing that would influence us at this point to make this a little bit different. And in fact, if you change numbers by $50,000, it changes your tax cap. It changes a lot of things. So there's a lot of things we can look at there. So overall, to get up to our $183 million budget, we have the administrative component, we have the program component, the capital, and the benefits component. So it gives us a 6.04% increase from last year, with a $10,471,322 increase. So here's our overview, our proposed budget. If you can see, our budget from 16-17 is $10,471,323, and the increase is 6.04. Our tax levy is up to $5,297,690. So that's up a substantial amount of money based on our debt service. And then our max levy to the community is $77,505,905, with our tax cap being at 7.337%. So there's a lot of things that we have to look at. We're looking at our shortage. Some of the things driving our shortage, obviously, is healthcare. So we're really looking at that and very eager to get some information about what that means for us by April 1st. We've submitted all our data to the company, so they're extracting it, analyzing it now. We have a phone call tomorrow to make sure they have everything that they need. So we're working very diligently to get that information. And this is, I just talked about the contingent budget rules. So the first vote, if it were to fail, and then we go to second vote, and if that fails, we go to contingent, which would be the same levy as last year. And here's our budget calendar. Obviously, the next board meeting, we have public input, a budget adoption by April 20th. You can do it sooner, but April 20th is probably a good date for us to ensure we have all of our financials from the state, from the healthcare, and things like that. In fact, today I just received preliminary information from BOCES. So over the next week, we should have the BOCES costs. So that was a substantial between 7 and 8% increase just in services, and it's primarily due to healthcare. So they're calculating 20% on all their employees. So that means all of our services go up as well. So, anybody have any questions?
What I'd like to do first, we'll get some questions from the board of Dr. Eastwood.
Okay.
Add to the presentation.
Yeah, I think it's quite simple. We've been talking about the large increase in health insurance over the last couple of meetings, and it's kind of ironic that the large increase in health insurance is almost identical to what our deficit is. As everybody knows, we're in the process now, the Board of Education authorized the evaluation of our options in looking for alternatives to guaranteeing that our employees do not lose benefits, but at the same time that we can obtain those benefits at a lower cost. We're at the beginning stages of that, as Michael has said, where the data is being presented to the consultants, and we hope that within a 2 to 3 week period, those recommendations will be put before the Board of Education and we can make some type of decision. It will also give us a very good idea of any cost savings that may be reaped from changing from the consortium that we have now to something different while keeping the benefits at the same level. And that's our goal right now. We believe that there are options or will be options put before the Board of Education that will in fact save some money, probably some significant money, to help us mediate that $3.6 or $3.8 million deficit. And then, as you also understand, the proposal that's before us now for state aid is only a beginning discussion and is not the final discussion. That should come a little around April 1st, if not sometime shortly after that. So our first meeting in April should provide this Board of Education with a significantly different proposal for completing our budget, and I personally believe that we'll be in a better position to have a different type of conversation with the Board of Education at that time. That means that we're going to have to be very aggressive with the analysis of health care insurance and its costs, though. And I think that we can meet both goals, significantly reducing that proposed increase at the same time, making sure that we keep the same level as contractually obligated to our employees. So those are two big things that we have to do, but our early belief and analysis is that we might be able to meet those goals and put this budget into a more acceptable position.
So we'll go around the table with questions. We'll start over with Mrs. Knapp.
I'm going to have a funny request. The tax cap calculation, you know, the 8 steps.
Yeah.
Would you be able to email us that tomorrow?
Yes.
I can't read that,
Yeah,
and
I just realized
always,
that in there.
I always get confused, and if somebody asks me, I like to be able to have it written out.
I will do that.
I'm sorry.
Sorry about that.
No, I didn't bring my little glasses.
Yeah, colorful lots.
So when we are looking at a 6% increase, where does that come out for, what is going to be our, we don't know yet, let me rephrase it. We do not know yet what our number's going to be this year. Do we have an idea? No idea.
No, and the problem is there's so much volatility in some of the issues that are sitting in front of us. Healthcare is the big problem. And understand, too, that when Michael was putting together the estimates on healthcare, some board members thought that it may be overinflated or larger than it really needs to be. And the point that when Michael and I were talking about that is the reason for that is not only was there a discussion that the problem with the healthcare consortium is 26%. That's the problem. So let's say they mitigate that problem. Originally, the next step was to talk about a 20%, and now they're talking about a possible 17%, right? Well, if the problem is 26%, what's going to end up happening is, in order to get that down to 17%, you're really changing the level of benefits for your employees. And that's problematic by itself. The other piece that's problematic is, let's say they do come in at 20 or at 17%. The problem's still 26%. So are they going to, and there was some whispering about this some while ago, will they do something mid-year as another increase? Or again next year as an increase? The question becomes, when do these increases stop and when does the consortium get fixed? Our question is, one, do we want to be in that situation? Two, as we're doing now, are there alternatives out there that will mitigate those costs at the same time holding the level of benefits that our employees contractually have the right to? So that's what we're doing right now, and we believe that there will be alternatives that we can put in front of the board within a couple of weeks.
On the proposed other revenues, did we always take NJROTC out of that?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Hear me? On the proposed other revenues,
Yep.
I see on the bottom the NJROTC. I didn't realize that came out of that area.
Yeah, because we receive revenues from the federal government to pay part of their salary.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. McElroy.
What's the total unappropriated reserve fund balance? Like, how much do we have as our fund balance?
As of last year, it was 19 million as of June 30th, or do you want the most, right now, the current?
Whatever is the most accurate.
I would have to look at what is the most current as of today, but as of last year, at June 30th, it was around roughly 19 million.
All right, so just for the sake of argument, then using this 5 million would draw it down to roughly 12-ish.
Right around 13-ish.
13-ish.
Yeah. But I just want to.
But yeah.
We just did a bond referendum though in December that we're using $4 million of that fund balance.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Right.
Well, we've also used others for.
So we'd be down to like 10.
Yeah.
10-ish.
Yeah.
But don't we have some others allocated for the tax surcharges out of that?
Yes, we have reserves,
And
yes.
Compensations and other
Well, I think
programs?
that's the discussion that they're going to have once we have everything else ironed out, whether or not there's enough for us to put in reserves,
Yeah,
right?
that's what I'm getting a
Well,
little nervous about.
there's always conversations about what the real number is at the end of the school year and available to go into those accounts. The problem with fund balance is, once you increase that fund balance, it's almost impossible in today's situations to decrease those numbers. So when you use fund balance, so we use $5.2 million,
Just for the budget.
you're starting the next year in a hole $5.2 million, which means you have to make up that $5.2 million before you can start taking care of the actual budget for the year. That's why, if you remember 2 or 3 years ago, actually every year that they come here, they recommend, it was recommended a couple of months ago when our fiscal advisor came, to start, because last year we came up, they want us to start going back down again where we were trying to decrease the dependency on fund balance. So the problem as defined here is to find other sources of mitigating the problem so we don't have to increase our dependency on fund balance, which puts us into a deep financial problem and at risk for getting higher interest rates on our loans. So that's our goal. Our goal is to try to find a way to mitigate this 3.8 problem. At the same time, looking always to try to lower our dependency on fund balance. Last year we increased it and that was the first time I think that we went back up in previous years we were trying to decrease our dependency on fund balance.
And just, I want to remind the board that as things move forward, on decisions that are probably going to be made by individuals who are not at this table now, is that we have 2 very serious capital issues that the Board of Education for Middletown will need to address over the next 5 to 10 years, one being Twin Towers, and the other one being the capacity at Carter. So those are 2 a lot of money projects that we have to start considering putting some money aside in a capital reserve that can be used for those projects down the road. And if we're smart as a school district, we'll start to address those issues in a reserve now instead of waiting 10 years from now.
There's the other piece to this. And I'm only talking about hypotheticals now, please, everybody understand that. This is a hypothetical. If one of the decisions to change health programs to a self-insured program, one of the things that the Board of Education would be looking to is to get approval and passage of a health insurance reserve account by the state legislature in order for us to make sure that if we had any catastrophic illnesses, we can draw from that to take care of those particular situations. So that may be sitting in front of us as an option to use some of our fund balance and to be placed in this health care reserve account. Minnesink has that as they've been able to take care of their health care costs. They've also had to create and get passage of this reserve account by the legislature in order to make sure that they have those protections as well. So there's a lot of things in play right now in order to keep the stability that we need inside the district financially and otherwise. I don't know if that answers your question.
I wasn't really.
It was more than an answer.
You were just asking how much it was.
I was just saying.
Yeah, you understand how
sensitive we are.
In other words, we can spend the money. So that's like we have.
Well, even if we're at the roughly 10 million, notwithstanding everything that was just said, we're still above the 4%.
Yes.
Allowed by law, which I understand that nobody around the state really maintains that. But my concern about the health insurance is, well, there's several. One is that anytime you make any change, there's going to be disruption, and there are some people who are in, I'm sure, very unique circumstances where any change could be potentially catastrophic, because they might have a doctor who is in network treating something very, very serious, and we can't possibly imagine all of the permutations that could exist, because we've lived through it in Martin Woodbury. Those things happen.
So I just wanted to address that. The actuality is, yes, we can duplicate exactly what we have now, using the same companies that we use now, under a self-insured plan.
Menacing Valley is actually, I talked to the gentleman from Menacing Valley last night at Orange County School Boards, and they're self-funded. I asked him, well, who'd you go with? He goes, we're doing the same exact thing that we had with the consortium. It
Same
was
company.
Empire, I think Empire, right? Blue Cross or something?
So in our case, we can literally go to the same company, get the same car, a different card with a different name on it, same benefits, and make sure that those are replicated out.
Yeah, and just as what Dr. Eastwood was referring to earlier, to get from 26% down to 17, there's changes in that plan that are going to be significant.
I suspect that there would be.
Yeah.
There are going to be more, obviously, and that's the other thing,
Right.
too, is that if districts consider pulling out, I understand that we have to think about the Middletown community and, our taxpayers and obviously our employees, but we are also members of a consortium, and, to the extent that we are, if we pull out, then that weakens the system even further. Other people who could be, like some of our employees might have the health insurance from Martin Woodbury, let's say, which is in the same consortium. But if they don't get out, and then they're saddled with increase. I mean, the whole thing is obviously a bit of a quagmire. There's no question about it.
Health insurance.
It's complicated, apparently. I think we all knew that. I think we all knew that, but I don't know. All I'm saying, I guess, is that I want us to just be very, very careful with how we proceed and move forward. I mean, I trust that we're going to look at all the angles, because even with self-insured and setting up reserve things, you get a few employees who have particularly challenging issues.
And the good thing is that we discussed that whenever the consultant takes part, that these decisions aren't just going to be made by administration. You're going to have people at the table that are involved from the unions. We talked about maybe having a board representative. If
We
they
do
wanted.
now. We have, at our committee, we have representation from all the units, the unions. And we've invited a board member or two to come on if they so desire. I think John had said that he would participate. To make sure that the communication is open. We share our documents with them, so we're very transparent about that. And we were very clear about the goal, which is to lower costs and keep the same level of benefits. And personally, I think that we can do that. That's me. But the options are not staying with the same consortium in order to do that. One is simply by staying with the consortium, as Michael just said, the benefits are going to deteriorate anyway, because you have to get the money from somewhere. So some of the objectives are going to be higher copays. It's going to be a degradation of out of pocket, but also the prescription. There's options on the prescription where you have to go through a step program. So there's all these things that could be very problematic in their own just by staying there. And that's why I'm saying is, from what I understand now, I think that we can mitigate these costs and keep the level of coverages the same.
Yeah, and I agree that it's worth the exploration. We wouldn't be doing our due diligence if we didn't, because you also don't want to be in it if it does implode. You don't want to be there when that happens. And just in reference to the other school district you mentioned, the flip side of that too is that while the level of benefit is the same, I happen to be in this really weird, unique situation where I'm on a school board here. I work in Monroe Woodbury. I'm married to a menacing teacher. and I actually got out of the Monroe Woodbury to jump on to the Minnesink for other reasons, but their on-paper cost is higher than the Orange Ulster plan. Like their on-paper family plan and on-paper single plan is a few $1,000s more. Now this 20% or 17% increase will bring it in line. And so for the members, there was a transparent, seamless, you just went from one thing to the other. Nobody noticed the difference, and nobody noticed an out-of-pocket difference because as of right now, they pay fixed dollars. You'd probably have to speak to their business people, because I think you have to lay out something on paper, and what you may actually spend might be a bit different, because from what I understand, they basically pay for network access, and then they pay the claims out as the claims come in. And so that might not, be what the on the paper figure is, but
that's why the good consultant is here, because I wouldn't even venture to guess all the complexities involved.
Yeah, it's a lot, but
there'll be a decision for this board to make. There's no doubt about it. But as you mentioned earlier, when we're elected here, we're elected to make sure we take care of the fiduciary responsibilities of this school district, and getting the information from them, which was a hassle, about our own data, and now going to the consultant is, I believe, the absolute right approach for this school district to take. And I think everybody, and you too, Darryl, probably agree that we have to do this, to at least take a look at it, because the unknown factor here is this board's confidence in the consortium moving forward. The fact that they've had this issue crop up that puts us in a $3 million bind is something that we cannot allow them to happen again next year or the year thereafter. So other than the numbers thing, I think there's a trust factor here that we have right now with the consortium. And until they, in my opinion, work that out to our satisfaction, because we are the second largest member of the consortium, then they have to prove to us that we have confidence in them. Otherwise, we're sitting here next year making the same judgments.
I want to make sure, Mr. Tuttle, I didn't miss something. We haven't gotten the BOCES proposed budget yet, have we?
No. You have not, no. I just received preliminary numbers today, but I did not receive the administrative or the capital from them. I think it's going to their board next Wednesday, I think, for vote.
Okay.
Yeah, so within 10 days or so, we'll probably have it. Or the next meeting, you may have to vote on the BOCES budget.
I just want to add on that I deal with insurances a lot at work. The big things that have come out in the last 6-8 months is the out-of-pockets, large amounts like $3,000, $5,000. Like before you can have surgery or you can have something. That's a big, I don't have $5,000 sitting around to pay if I needed a hernia surgery, And the co-pays, we're having co-pays that are $40 and $50 a piece. And if you're doing a 3-day-a-week program, that's $150. And normal people cannot afford it. So I really think, I understand we're going to look into it and everything, but I really would like to know the answers to those questions when the gentleman does his...
Yeah, he'll do a side-by-side comparison of our major benefits, and that's really what we're talking about. And, I have access to preliminary conversation that you don't. And I'm not saying that for any reason. That's why I feel good about things, just seeing the direction that things are going. The other piece that was explained to us, and this gentleman, understand, has worked in New York State a lot. He knows these systems inside and out. And it's almost scary to hear him talk because, not scary, I guess maybe, but he really does know his work here. And the preliminary conversation was around the cost of the benefit plan, right? And he basically gave you a visual, or gave us a visual of a normal curve distribution with the median, or mean. And anything to the right of that, if your number was to the right of that, it would be statistically to your benefit to look elsewhere because the costs, in other words, half the costs are lower, right? And he based our cost for the plan, the membership cost, up to the right of that meaning that it's currently in that you would have better chances of looking elsewhere than you would staying where you are, and that's before the increase that we're talking about, which would push us further to the right, making the from a statistical perspective, your chances better, even more so, to start looking. So I mean, simplistically looking at it that way, we have better chances of going out, for a better term, and shopping our benefit plan with our experience to other providers.
I do want to move the conversation back to the budget because this health insurance stuff is something that the board's going to be talking about in the weeks to come. So I definitely want to at least get through our questions regarding the budget that obviously include the health care, but I don't want to bog us down just on the health care issue and details right now. So, Mr. McElroy, you have other questions regarding the budget?
Other questions regarding this that are not necessarily healthcare related?
They could be healthcare related. I just don't want to get caught up in the minutia of the healthcare discussion because we're going to have that discussion moving forward.
It'll probably have to be a separate meeting too.
Yeah, I mean it's a big deal. Linda, you made some really good points. I think we're actually making a really good case for why we should have single payer health care because the fact of the matter is that too many people can't afford the things that they need, and there's not really an adequate system in place with what we have. But that's an even bigger conversation for another day. All right, so I don't think I have anything really left. The only other, I guess, point, even if we make a change, the chances of there being no budgetary increase as a result of health insurance is pretty much zero, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's still going to be an increase. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess
it just might not be on the order of 3.8 million.
Might not be 20%.
Remember,
it may not be exact numbers.
There's two things in play. Reducing health care costs to us, right? How much can we get to reduce that 3.8 million or 6 million? And then what is the final budget in state, or the state aid piece? So both of those things we won't have a handle on until after April 1st. And once we do, we're hoping that they align and come down.
You're ready to twist some arms, I imagine.
Have some conversations.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McElroy. Ms. Tobiasen.
Michael, I'm not sure, and this is why I'm asking this. Back in the late 90s, I was more in tune with the pilots. How is this district involved in them? I'm looking at new buildings in the district, in town, both the town of Walkill and the city of Middletown. I'm also looking at the loss of Sears, and I know that the Galleria came back and negotiated. Are we on the table when these come before us, which we are?
Yeah, we get notified, and our attorneys look at them, and then, they go through the whole process of.
Is there any concern, and I don't know, like the Tractor Supply or whatever it's called, did they come before? Did they get a pilot? Did the building over on Dolson? I don't know if it's
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot that comes, so I'm not sure specifically if those are.
But that can affect this money, can it not?
It can what?
Can that affect, you have the proposed revenue, shows a $26,000 decrease.
Right.
Could that go the other way too? Could
It
go
could,
up?
if another building came on where we were receiving more money, but then we don't receive tax money, so they're on
Right,
taxable.
yeah.
So it fluctuates each year. I think, Goshen, they're struggling because they have the Lego land coming on, so they're having a lot of turmoil with that.
Well, I know.
Yeah,
The Galleria came back to us last year.
Just in the fall.
And they got, we came to an agreement.
Yes.
Can they,
No. They can't, as part of that agreement, they can't go back, I believe. They definitely can't go backwards,
Yes.
but forward they can still.
No, they can go backwards, depending on the level of vacancy.
See, that's my concern with Sears. I mean, that's a big.
You'd have to
company going
lose 3 major stores in order for us to go
Okay.
under the number.
Plus, but because Macy's is another, not Macy's, JCPenney's another one that's teetering.
Mhm.
But they have, my understanding is you will be seeing a major revamp at that mall as far as the type of stores that they're looking to bring in. The word on the street, whether it works or not, I don't know, is that they're in heavy discussions for very high-end retailers like the Saks and things of that nature to come in place of those stores. They want to change the structure a little bit.
Okay.
I-
No,
I-
because that was a concern.
I also want to say that, not that I'm patting him on the back or so, but he has done, and so has the board there, done a great job in Wallkill in increasing taxable properties. So
And
that
commercial
place is,
ratables, yeah.
that place is growing, so that's helped offset
Right.
a lot of our.
Yeah.
But I didn't know how much of that growth they had come before for pilots,
Yeah.
which then would reduce. And Macy's is a separate entity down there, right? That's not part of the Galleria. It's the Galleria Mall, but they're taxed differently, correct?
Yeah, they're taxed separately from the rest of
Okay.
the store, but they're having issues too, and I think they're getting ready to get bought out or something to that
It's
effect.
about the square footage. That's what it comes down to. If it goes below a certain number of vacancy, then theoretically the owner can renegotiate.
I think it was 60%. I think it was 60, had to go below 60%.
To your point, though, one of the issues that we've been fortunate enough in this school district is that because ever since the 2008 recession, when people started going away from big mega homes and stuff like that, this community has had a lot of good affordable housing on single-family homes. Typically, single-family homes in the Middletown area that sell very well sell between $250,000 and $350,000, whereas if you go to Warwick or Monroe, there you're talking about more in the 400 range. Because of that, we have seen a lot of construction for residential housing, including, I don't know if you guys saw, but on County Route 78, they've just land cleared everything to build more apartment townhouses over there. What that does is it increases our taxable properties. And so the tax cap figure that you see here, where people keep thinking it's 2%, for us, we've been fortunate, is like this year it's 7%.
7.3.
So if we wanted to, and correct me if I'm wrong, that figure means that really this board, if it wanted to, and I'm not ever suggesting we're ever going to go near that number, we could actually go up to that 7% with only a 50% majority vote needed, because we wouldn't be exceeding our tax cap. We'd have to go beyond the 7.3 to then be exceeding our tax cap and have a 60% plus one vote required to pass the budget. So we're fortunate enough because there are some communities that are under 2%,
yeah.
because there's no growth in their ratables anymore.
I was just, as I prefaced when I began, of the pilots, and what was given, and we saw the demise of the Orange Plaza as the result of the Galleria and the breaks that they were given, and then the rebirth of Orange Plaza, and I'm looking at the growth around, and that was my concern, that we could lose again and have more pilots, and then our revenue would be down.
Yeah, the tax cap takes into consideration for that. So depending on the fluctuation, the percentage of your actual tax cap will go up.
I just wanted to make sure that you were part of that playing table when they came, too. Thank you.
Our attorneys see every one of them.
Thank you, Mr. Tobias. And Pastor Williams? Nope. Mrs. Blumenau? Mr. Crescenzo?
I think you answered a lot of the questions I had, especially about the pilots. But why did the money go down?
I think one of the other buildings came off of the pilot, so now that's on the tax roll.
Now, you said that we are part of the negotiations for a pilot?
Yeah, usually our attorney's notified.
How much weight do we have in that?
I don't know. The IDA is they're pretty good at getting it in there. I mean, we can sit at the table and talk about it and negotiate. And,
Yeah, get our point across.
Yeah, technically, we have none.
Okay. That's what I
Technically, we have none. We're fortunate that they invite our conversation and listen to us. But technically,
Voting power or anything in that. And I think I understand this, but maybe if I ask this question, it'll clear it up for me a little bit more. On the health insurance, if the consortium goes down to 17%, and you've answered this, that's not going to pay for the current levels of benefits. So it would look good that it went down to 17%, but we would have to come up with a balance to bring it back up to the current benefit levels? And the other part that I question...
Yeah, well, let me just, on that particular, bring it back to the current levels, we couldn't bring it back to the current levels because we have to play even Steven inside the consortium, so we can only get what the consortium provides us.
Okay.
So if their services go down, or the level of their services go down, their co-pays come up, all of those types of things, and that's why I said in the drug program, one of the discussions is something similar to what they call a STEP program. So if your doctor prescribes a specific drug and they object to that, meaning that, let's say in cholesterol, there's inside that drug group, there's maybe 4 or 5 different alternatives, and 3 of them they're rejecting, right? They say you have to use one of these other ones. Well, if you're allergic to those, then you have to go through a whole process of getting permission, all right, or an exception from the group in order to get the appropriate drug.
Yeah.
And they're talking about giving you an opportunity to get 30 days, I think it was, Mike, right?
or 90.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
not a long time to go through multiple
Right.
grievances,
Right.
for a better term. So that's what I refer to it as a degradation of service. If you're paying more in copay, that's a degradation in service, right? It's different than what you're doing now. So in order to get to 17%, they have to do those types of tricks, let's call it, or strategies in order to bring those costs down. That's where the question then becomes, over time, how much degradation is there over the next couple of years in order to keep the costs from bouncing back up, right? And that's a big question for everybody because the system cannot stay in the direction that it is right now. It's really, for a better term, out of control, especially the prescription drug area.
Thank you. That answered the question. But this might be a rhetorical question, I don't know, but isn't there a law that you have to keep the same levels, that you can't?
No, because it's a consortium. So it's basically something that all the membership of the consortium have to agree upon. And this is they're struggling right now because they're in deep trouble. The question is, how do you get out of that trouble? And part of the solution is, there's 2 pieces. One is increase cost, and the other is decrease, I call it decreasing benefits to a point where it's not as, I was going to say convenient, but that's not the term. It's not as attentive to the particular medical needs of each person.
Thank you.
Vince, I think just to add something, I think you were referring to the contractual where it has to be equal to a night shift. Yeah, I think that's what you're talking about. So night shift's in the same boat. Their rates are going, it's like neck and neck. So it's the same.
And I think Vince, because I think what Vince was probably thinking about was, do we have to make it whole if the degradation? But it doesn't work that way. We're not required as a school district to make up the difference if, as an individual school district, if the consortium somehow starts to degrade their. It's almost like in the private sector, each and every year, like let's say my bank might say, well, this year you're going to have to, increase co-pays because, we can't handle that cost as much anymore. A little bit like that. Mr. Perino?
Well, first of all, I want to the administration, Mr. Tuttle, for working very diligently on this budget and for being on top of this health care issue. We've discussed this, and I most definitely agree with Ed that we have a responsibility to the staff and the taxpayers of Middletown to come up with the best possible health care at the lowest cost. I mean, by contractually, it has to be equal, at least equal to the present plan in which it should be. That being said, just looking at this budget shortfall right now, with almost 3.9 million shortfall, if this were to stand, what would this do to? What would this type of cuts would this mean? Do we have any idea yet?
Yeah, it's probably at that point, if it were to stand, we're talking probably in the range of 25, depending on what types of positions, 25 to 60 FTEs in a variety of different, across the board of different types of employees.
And am I correct, in the last few years, we've cut about 150?
Over the last 6 years,
6 years or
when
so.
it first started, we've eliminated 150 FTEs from the district.
I don't want to go on a soapbox here because the hour is late, but we're always put in this position. We're wanting to be, I think, the second most underfunded district of our, given everything in New York State. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, we're in the top 10%, our top 10 number, not 10%. We're one of the top 10 most underfunded districts in New York State. If you look at a different number, we're the 11th in that group. So it doesn't matter which data set you're looking at or how you look at underfunded districts. We're always in that top 10, top 11 most underfunded school districts in New York.
It just is amazing that we've still, with difficulty, have been able to maintain and expand programs in this district, and that's a credit to the administration sitting around the table and to our staff. But as I look at this, things cannot continue such as this. I mean, a theoretical tax cap increase of 7.337%. That's a tremendous amount for many of the people here when the salaries aren't there to support this on the whole in this district. So that has to come down somehow. Because as we mentioned, the reason people are moving in this district, and this is one of the most affordable districts to move into in terms of housing costs. But you cannot put this much burden on these people who are probably, and I'm sure, struggling to pay mortgages right now, along with car payments, along with college payments, medicals, on. So, the answer, it's a Gordian knot here. It's really a terrible position that we've been put in, and that's about what I have to say here.
Thank you, Mr. Perino. I'm trying to see. I think I'm good. I mean, I know things sound dire at this moment in time, but I do want to remind the board that at this point last year, the deficit that this board was looking at was double the dollar amount that we're looking at this year. So that's a little positive on it. And my hopes are the same as Dr. Eastwood stated, that with additional cost savings from the healthcare side, along with what we would hope would be an increase in state aid once the budget negotiations are completed, that we can make up that difference and have a reasonable, reasonable presentation to our taxpayers, because we're never going to, this board's, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I doubt very much this board has any interest in going high on a tax rate this year. But thank you very much, Mr. Tuttle, for that, for your first, this pretty much completes, at least from a presentation standpoint, your first budget year. So great job. Thank you. I also do want to remind folks, Mr. Witt reminded me that Monhegan Middle School's concert is this Tuesday coming up as well. So that's 7 o'clock over at Monhegan Middle School. We'll come back to committee reports. I want to give anybody who's remaining an opportunity to address the board if they'd like to at this time. Anybody?
Good evening, everyone. I just want to echo the sentiments that Mr. Perino put forth on the record. I think when we look at the Middletown district, we're very unique. Whereas many people are fleeing New York State because of the high cost of living, and other school districts have seen a decline in population, we've seen the opposite in our district, a growth in population, because in many ways, Middletown is an oasis. The costs of living are lower than many of our surrounding communities. A greater tax burden on homeowners, I don't think it's the solution when the state of New York has a big IOU. And it's just shameful that we have to be placed in that situation. And going to what Ms. Blumenau highlighted about the Lions meeting, as well as some of the points made by Ms. Tobias and with respect to the art presentations, our children have a wonderful entrepreneur spirit. They're willing to go out there. In one way, I commend them, and that was a beautiful presentation. But at the same time, it's tragic that field trips, the opportunity to make learning interactive, has been at times chopped or placed in danger because of budgetary reasons. We cannot afford to provide those opportunities for our children. There's so many resources in our state, within our community, from President Roosevelt's home in Hyde Park to the war memorials within our own community, where our children could learn, could experience history, experience the sciences. And I think our state has, our elected officials in Albany have a lot of soul searching to do. And again, it comes back to the new proposals of our governor. Whilst they may sound nice on paper, how could you make new promises if you can't keep your words to our young people? Promises that you owe, what you owe them right now. And I hope that they get their act together. I would like to see a bipartisan cooperation in Albany, and our school district gets what is deserved. Field trips should have been cut. They should be multiplied. And again, our homeowners, our taxpayers should not be caused to wear a greater burden. Rather, look at what our school has done and let that be an example to move forward in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. Seeing no one else for an opportunity to address, we'll move on quickly to committee reports. Audit Committee, Ms. Tobiasen.
We are not meeting until April.
Buildings and Grounds, Pastor Williams. Anything on change orders, Mr. McElroy?
All quiet.
All quiet on the high school front. Anything on Diversity Committee? Fair Funding, we have not heard anything yet from them. IEP reviews, Mr. Perino?
Keeps going, keep busy.
Mrs. Blumenau, Town of Walkill. City of Middletown, Mr. Crescenzo. Orange County School Boards, we had our meeting last evening. BOCES presented an outline. They will be having their budget presentation. I think it's April 1st. I got to get the date and I'll send it out to you guys. Where you, if you want to, you can go out. They serve dinner and they do their budget presentation. At that moment in time, we also had the two candidates who are running, Mrs. Bogart and Larry, and I forgot Larry's last name, from Cornwall, who's also running for their seats. Berger. Okay, thank you. Are there 3 seats? Did we say last time there were 3 seats or 2 seats up? All right. Well, there were 2 that presented, so we have not gotten, typically we'll get a recommendation letter asking us to nominate one of them. If we get that for the next meeting, we'll do so. New York State School Boards, Mrs. Blumenau, anything?
Middle of March.
Policy Committee, the Policy Committee met last evening. It reviewed the sections that were submitted by administration back in January. I sent an email earlier today to Dr. Eastwood with the committee's results, but it requires the administration to take a look at the attorney comments.
Right.
So if you can do that, and if you're good with everything, they can go right to get approved, put on the next agenda. I also in the email included the policies that were still missing from Section 5000, and we'd like to, if possible, get Section 6000 by April 1st, so we can review and act on them, and that would then leave us with one more section to get done before the school year ends. Okay? And that's Policy Committee. Safety and Security, Mr. Perino, anything?
We'll be having a meeting shortly. I don't know the exact date.
Okay. And then we don't have a report for the Teacher Center. That takes care of committee reports. Roundtable, Mr. McElroy, anything?
I'm exhausted. I think I said it all.
You tired yourself out. Mr. Bison?
Motion to adjourn.
Anybody have any problems? All right, second motion to adjourn by Mr. Bison, seconded by Mr. Crescenzo. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. We'll see you at our next meeting, which is Thursday, March 16th. I will talk to board members individually shortly about a meeting date for an evaluation. So have a good evening, everybody. Thank you.